Okay, so I'm a little excited about a game I just played today. And it was played against a player who was only in the 2000s, so he wasn't really a very strong player. But the fact is that it illustrates everything that I've been espousing about this kind of BlackmarDiemer formation that you can play against a variety of openings. You can even play it out of a queen pawn opening. So I played against French, where it's required they want to do an exchange variation, or against Caro-Kann. It's my primary offense against Caro-Kann. Now, you ought to be warned that it's going to result in an equal game at best for white if black plays properly. However, I spent many hours when I first learned chess investigating what I remember Emanuel Lasker calling the fantasy variation. And the fantasy variation is brought back to life in this particular implementation that we're doing. And the whole idea, once again, is to open the F file. What we're trying to do is open the F file for an attack directly on the black king position. And we're going to do pretty much everything that this video talks about on this slide. The knight's going to head to e5. Um, I see possible is spelled rather poorly here. We're going to put our bishop actually on c4 rather than d3, although it makes it to both squares eventually. And this is a very short game, but it's a game where I believe no mistakes were made on White's part. So we're going to check it with the engine. I haven't checked it with this engine, so we're going to create an opening that takes black out of his typical closed Caro-Kann lock it up type positional game. And Caro-Kann players hate it when that happens. So without further ado, we're going to go into this. We'll turn on our engine. And you'll see actually that I'm sure the engine hates my move of gambiting this pawn. Not just this knight to e4 is the right move. And as you see, the website I played this on suggests Stockfish 8 says knight takes e4 is the right move as well. So f3 results in an even game, possibly even a slight advantage for black. So he takes, we recapture with the knight, and now it says the right move, at least this engine says bishop to f5. So that has been played against me, and I don't think it creates a lot of issues, but it does solve black's white squared bishop lock it in with e6 problem. So now we're going to play bishop to c4, and you'd be shocked the number of people who also misplaced this bishop at this point. Now, bishop to c4 in this particular position is a sharp move designed to lock in that bishop. So if the bishop moves to g4, basically you get bishop takes f7 check. However, if it moves to f5, that kind of solves this problem. The b7 pawn is fairly protected in this scenario because the white queen has no access to it because there's still a pawn on c2 as opposed to queen pawn openings. So bishop to f5 gives black a very decent game here. However, he just locks it in. Now it's once again an even game, and the computer wants me to move bishop to f4, which I do not do. As you see, the computer's decided that my move's just as good as its move at this point in the opening. So it's preferred bishop to d6, and now interestingly queen to e1 is what it likes. So I simply pinned, and this heads for kind of an exchange, and a lot of players, I was rated higher than this opponent. They like exchanging pieces in some cases, especially these closed people in these nervous open positions. You know, they would exchange their king if they could. So he castles. Now it says queen to e1. I move queen to e2. Now it preferred queen to e1. Obviously, queen to e1 gets it over to h4, or to even to g3, and without the obstacle of having a knight in the way. But I have a slightly different plan here involved. So now he moves knight on b to d7, and it's hard to suggest what's really better than that. And strangely enough, the computer wants me to move knight to e4 here. So in this particular position, there are a variety of things that can happen. If I had a knight on e5 right now, it would probably be sackable on f7, followed by a capture on e6. So I'm going to move it to e5, and the computer, once again, doesn't really care for that move. It says you just chase h6 and gives black half a pawn up. And in fact, he captures. I capture back. Now it says knight to d7 is the right move. Interesting, isn't it? So, and it also says black has an advantage. Now he moves to d5, and it says he's got a similar advantage. So this bishop exchange is pretty much forced. And only a computer at this point would make a move like queen to b6 check. The knight to e7. He's going to take with the queen, as I recall. And now it says it's an even game after knight to e4, which is what I played. And now he needs to move b5, which he did. Maybe he's using a computer, I don't know. I have the only place to go is d3. And now f5. So the computer's basically staked its life on this move f5 because this is where my opponent blunders. And we'll see if the computer finds the move I made and how fast it finds it. He didn't play f5, he moved his knight to attack my bishop. His idea is to get bishop off the board. So, now we're going to find out if I made a mistake. Oh, look, the computer did find it. So, way down the page, and it's what is it? It's 14th. Yeah, it's its choice way down the page. Knight f6 check is correct. This is one of these Rudolf Spielmann sacrifices where I looked ahead 3 or 4 moves and said, this is going to be overwhelming. There's no way he's going to survive all these sacrifices. I'm going to sacrifice 2 pieces. So this is a check, and obviously if he doesn't take it, then we take his h-pawn. So we're preserving our bishop in the meantime. We've got a queen that can do all kinds of amazing things. Now the proper move, the proper follow-up is, yep, bishop takes check. It would be a mistake to play pawn takes pawn here probably. So although it looks like a strong move, he has got his visions of a check with the queen, which allows him to defend. And it's very possible that he's going to, let's see if it recommends, yeah, queen to h5 check, which I played, king to g7. King to g7 results in queen to g4 check. Now, interestingly, he takes f6. I took a long time on this move in this game because it looked to me like there's a way to triangulate with your queen. You can check on g4, then you can check on h4, and then you can take that pawn, and what you really want is you want your queen on that rank. You want it on the 5th rank because that takes the queen check away on c5. So it's a little hard to do that. I mean, theoretically now you could do that. You could play pawn takes pawn, and he could sacrifice his queen. So instead, I'm going to head for the mate. Check. He goes, moves, and now I bridge the rook. Okay, everybody says lift the rook these days. Okay, and now he checks. Now I move in the corner, and the game's over. He resigns. So it does appear that it was a perfect game, and it's one of those sacrifices that you see in books, tactical example books, that just felt ripe, and all we had to do was calculate 2 or 3 lines to see, gee, I don't see any way this is going to lose. Mostly because of the second sacrifice. The second sacrifice, if you think about it, it doesn't matter whether he takes it or doesn't take it because the queen's going to follow up and force him to take it. So the fact is that this was a completely sound sacrifice and about a 20-move miniature, and I was fairly happy about it today. So that's the end of this BlackmarDiemer episode.